If you grew up in the 70s, you probably got used to watching lots of great TV shows. Some series like Happy Days, Three's Company, and Maude were all sitcoms that kept us laughing. But there was one TV show that was about two roommates who both worked together and shared the same flat with some rather offbeat neighbors. Just like Friends made headlines in the 90s, Laverne and Shirley showed us how two women decided to do it their way. Throughout 8 whole seasons, these wacky roomies always had a shoulder to cry on, but behind the scenes, it was a very different story. Sometimes things aren't always as they appear on TV, and you won't believe how wild they tend to get. In this video, we'll take a look at some of the unbelievable behind-the-scenes antics of Laverne and Shirley. Make sure you stick around until the end of the video to learn about the shocking connection between this show and the legendary Star Wars franchise. Facts Verse presents 10 Laverne and Shirley scandals that are actually true. If you're a longtime fan of these two talented ladies, let us know by clicking the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to see more videos like this. Happy Days. In 1975, in an episode of Happy Days entitled A Date with Fonzie, audiences got their first look at two girls who are now known for Laverne and Shirley. However, they played much different characters in this on-screen debut. In Happy Days, these characters were bad girls, who Fonzie was trying to set up with his friend Richie. Richie was having a dry spell, it seems, so the Fonz just wanted to help him out. But these girls turned out to be the kind of girls that Richie's mother had always warned him about. The relationship didn't end well for poor Richie, but it worked out great for this pair of women. Within the next year, these two were starring in Laverne and Shirley as the titular characters, where they proved to be much sweeter, but maybe not as innocent, as the characters in Happy Days. Squeaky clean upstairs neighbors. Did you ever wonder how some of the most iconic neighbors on hit TV shows always tend to have their own entrance? Just like Kramer and Seinfeld could make an entrance, there was another character in Laverne and Shirley that could always make you cringe. With their annoying upstairs neighbor Squiggy, who was often joined by his partner in grime, Lenny, they were always busting in at the wrong moment. They were two local 1960s greasers who just so happened to work at the same Schatz brewery where our two bottle cap gals worked on their assembly line job. While these days you might consider them to be mild creepers, that wasn't originally the case. The actors who played the parts, David Landers and Michael McKean, originally had a comedy act based on Lenny and Squiggy and were nothing like what they were on the show. Their characters were filled with the kind of hardcore, dirty humor that even Eddie Murphy in his early career would have avoided. But for TV audiences in 1976, the producers decided they needed to tone down their act to the point of being harmless, bumbling stooges instead. An odd set replaced. Paramount Pictures has a studio that's used to recycling nearly everything that's made for a film or TV show. Oftentimes you'll see props and decorations that pop up in multiple productions since they're used repeatedly to save time and money. Well, it seems that when the TV series The Odd Couple ended their last season in 1975, some sets were repurposed for Laverne and Shirley because they were simply laying around. You might notice one entryway that's identical in both shows. They added some new wallpaper and paint, but the layout is essentially the same. But they didn't stop there. After the impressive 8-year run, the series finished with Laverne and Shirley moving to LA. Viewers of the hit show 2.5 Men will notice the Malibu beachfront house interior, where Charlie Sheen's character lives, is unmistakably the Laverne and Shirley flat. While both these shows weren't done at the same studio, that doesn't rule out the fact there might be a set designer who might have been a longtime Laverne and Shirley fan. Nice girls with attitude. When a TV episode is filmed, the schedules can require tough work that goes on for weeks and months. Often the script is changed at the last minute as storylines and plots develop. This meant that the scriptwriters who worked on set for Laverne and Shirley had to roll with the punches. Most often, this meant that writers would continually cycle on and off the show, since few could handle the fast-paced pressure. When working closely with Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams, writers often had different opinions of what they thought their characters should say. This led to shouting matches that resulted in several writers simply getting up and leaving their job. Usually there were 12 writers on a team. Throughout the show's run, they had 144 different writers. This meant that a total of 12 teams of writers left or got fired since they couldn't stand working with these two hotheads on set. Whose line is it anyway? When you work with a film star like Cindy Williams, there's bound to be a hard-thumping attitude. Before Cindy Williams joined the cast of this TV show, she nearly turned down the role since she was a serious actress for some pretty impressive films, like American Graffiti 1 and 2. So it wasn't a big surprise that she carried a very big attitude despite being in her late 20s. While most talented actors are thankful to be working a steady hit TV gig, Cindy wasn't so content. It's now known that she was continually counting lines of her character in the script, or she says her agent was counting for her. But she wanted to have more script time than her co-star Penny Marshall. It seems that even though Penny was the daughter of Frank Marshall, the show's producer, Cindy was determined to prove herself as being the star of the show. Even though she portrayed the kind-hearted Shirley Feeney, she was the total opposite working on set through the series. A very hot set. When the cameras roll, you have to keep silent behind the scenes. But when the shutter stops, it's open season on pointing out the mistakes others had made. Not only did Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams clash on the set, but the entire cast also had their occasional arguments and fights. David Landers, who played Squiggy, was another hothead who regularly voiced his opinions. As you might expect, when two loudmouth actors go head-to-head, there's gonna be sparks. Cindy and David happened to be on and off lovers in real life, and throughout the series they went back and forth between dating and fighting. They continued this on-again and off-again relationship for the rest of the series. They finally called it quits, and Cindy married actor-singer Bill Hudson. Cindy would eventually leave the show before having her first baby. A failed spin-off. Just as Happy Days introduced Laverne and Shirley to audiences, Laverne and Shirley attempted to introduce another character to inspire a new series. Carmine Ragusa, also known as the Big Ragu, was given a chance to take the stage in the final episode of Laverne and Shirley. The episode was called Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow, and featured singing and dancing from Eddie Mecca's character. Sadly, his character didn't get the reaction producers were hoping for. They scrapped the idea of a spin-off for this character and never looked back. No kids allowed. On a television show, backstage isn't exactly the best place to have kids running around, especially with all the electric cables and hot lights. But that's not the only reason kids were banned from set, even if they belong to the cast and crew of Laverne and Shirley. It seems producer Gary Marshall gave a very strict warning to anyone who had kids on the production, but it wasn't for the reason you might think. With all the foul language that was used throughout the day, and the continual arguments full of swearing, this producer didn't want any kids to be exposed to it. Just like a real family man, it shows how much Frank Marshall cared enough to keep kids safe and unaware of the on-set drama. Lenny and Squiggy rock the world. True fans of Laverne and Shirley might already know that Lenny and Squiggy had a music album that was released in 1979. Although it didn't achieve any critical acclaim, the producers were smart to take advantage of these beloved characters. While it might not go down in history as a great album, it's an impressive achievement for actors to transition to musicians when needed. Nobody was rushing to get their hands on the album back then, but if you managed to hang on to one over the years, you might have a very rare and valuable collectible in your possession. The Star Wars connection. Many fans of Cindy Williams might be surprised that she almost locked in a life-changing role before Laverne and Shirley kicked off. It seems she had a history of working with George Lucas, who had produced American Graffiti. In 1976, she auditioned for the role of a space princess in a new sci-fi film that George was developing called Star Wars. You can still find her audition reel online, along with many others who ended up auditioning for roles, including Amy Irving and Terry Nunn. Despite not getting the part, the Star Wars influence worked its way onto the set of Laverne and Shirley when Carrie Fisher appeared in an episode. When Laverne decides to become a Playboy bunny hostess, she's beaten out of the job by none other than Carrie Fisher. It seems Cindy Williams was nowhere found on set when this Star Wars princess came to the set. Do you think Cindy Williams should have gotten the part in Star Wars rather than Carrie Fisher? Let us know in the comments. Despite the fighting and hectic times these actors went through, they still managed to create a lovable and timeless show. We hope you enjoyed this look at Laverne and Shirley. If you enjoyed it, make sure to click the like button and subscribe to Factsverse for more videos like this.